these issues. Okay. There's lots of other areas beyond taxation where similar trade-offs like this arise. So even when you're thinking about private insurance, when an insurance company is deciding how comprehensive of a coverage should I offer, how much should I make people co-pay, the analysis is almost exactly the same as this. So people will be willing to pay more if you give them more complete insurance because that's better for them to protect them against bad things. But on the other hand, if that discourages people from taking precautions to make sure that their house doesn't burn down, that's the elasticity, right? Then you're going to want to reduce the amount of coverage that you have. So designing an optimal private insurance contract is exactly equivalent for a private company to designing the optimal social insurance by redistribution. And so I think what that sort of implies is that these things are really just the same problem. If you're going to be a successful insurance company person and you think the elasticity is really high and so we should not have much social insurance, well then you should go start an insurance company that offers really low coverage because that's going to be what's successful. On the other hand, if you think the elasticity is really low, you should go offer really comprehensive coverage because these things are, they're just exactly the same problem. These trade-offs also employ when we think about social or unemployment insurance. Actually, I don't think you're going to look at this in the problem set, so forget about that. But there's basically a trade-off there between equity, so making sure that unemployed people don't starve, and the fact that if you make life too cushy for the unemployed people, they're not going to try to get a job. But it's the exact same type of a trade-off. There's an elasticity and there is an inequality, right? Labor unions are another example of this. So union workers tend to be less well off than the owners. And this is one justification for having unions because they help redistribute wealth from the owners to the workers. And the problem with that is it might reduce investments people make, right? So there's an elasticity there, but there's also an inequality there. And if unions, if the inequality between unions and the firm compared to how well the unions know how to make demands on the firm in a way that doesn't reduce their incentive to invest, versus the corporate tax and the benefits that that brings to the broader population, the inequality between the owners of the firm and the whole population, whichever is bigger will determine whether unions or corporate taxation is more effective. And something that my wife works on, which is the enforcement of laws against the informal seizure of land in Latin America, where lots of poor people come in and they steal the land of wealthy people or they steal land from the state. That redistributes wealth, but it's also an inefficient use of the land, and it can discourage people from maintaining the land if they know someone's going to take it. And whether, what the trade-off there is very similar to the type of analysis we did today. So these issues about redistribution of wealth show up in a really wide range of contexts, in the private sector, in the public sector, in a whole series of different policy issues. Okay. So there were many, many limitations to the analysis. We only thought about these narrow tax questions. We left out all these factors. But I think that many of these additional factors, some of them make us want to redistribute less. Many of them actually make us want to redistribute more. And so it seems quite likely, at least to me, that the optimal tax system involves significantly higher taxes and significantly more progressive taxes than we currently have. And this is a very active public issue right now. It's obviously at the absolute top of the agenda in the national debate, and my hope is that the discussion that we had today, that what we thought about today, can help you be more informed about both what you think is right and how you can persuade other people that what you think is right. I don't know where everybody stands on this issue, but one important complication is how we can use the more sophisticated tools than just lump sum redistribution to make this work. So for example, education can be very valuable as a way to spend resources, because it also encourages people to work harder. And education is not worth very much to someone who's expecting to be a welfare queen, right? Inheritance taxes are an important issue. We didn't talk about those. Public infrastructure spending, subsidies for innovative activities and other public goods, old age pensions and forced savings. There's different types of taxes, which we didn't talk about, consumption versus income versus capital. So this is a very rich set of research topics, and I hope you guys will be interested in and engaged with it going forward. Thanks. And come to the exam.